not taking out any Metal Gears.
Amidst the enormous success of Sons of Liberty, the criticisms about the story and alternate hero continued to haunt Kojima. The developer decided to take the next Metal Gear back to its roots. Kojima stated that Metal Gear Solid 3 would take place in the wilderness, a stark contrast with MGS 1 and 2. Previous games were primarily set indoors because current consoles were not powerful enough to portray a true jungle setting, with changing weather, a natural landscape, and roaming wildlife. As a result, the collision engine in previous installments could not be used, and a new one had to be built from scratch.
What a thrill.
At the Tokyo Game Show in 2003, Kojima introduced the world to the newest international incident in the Metal Gear Solid series, Snake Eater. The gameplay sequences surprised many, but the most shocking revelation was the time period. The trailer clearly identified a soldier named Snake as the hero, but it seemed to take place sometime before Metal Gear Solid. The title graphics and music had a very classic James Bond style to them, suggesting the title could be set in the 1960s or 70s. Speculation ran rampant over the following months, but Kojima put assumptions to rest at E3 2004, announcing the game would take place in 1964 during the Cold War. Metal Gear Solid 3 was released later that year on November 14, 2004 in North America, to significantly less fanfare than its predecessor. Snake Eater dropped in Japan a month later. At the heart of Snake Eater was the tale of how the legendary Big Boss earned his namesake, and served as the official chronological origin of the entire Metal Gear franchise. Set in the jungles of Russia in the thick of the nuclear standoff, MGS3 opened with Jack, aka Naked Snake, being sent on an extraction op, dubbed the Virtuous Mission, to rescue the Soviet scientist Nikolai Stepanovich Sokolov. Backup consisted of medical specialist paramedic, Snake's former mentor, the Boss, and Fox Unit Commander, Major Tom. Everything went without a hitch until Snake and Sokolov crossed a bridge en route to the rendezvous point. The Boss confronted her old pupil and revealed her defection to the Soviet Union. She had joined forces with Colonel Volgin and reunited with her former comrades in the Cobra unit. Snake attempted to stop the Boss, but failed and was severely injured. Volgin recaptured Sokolov and used one of the two Davy Crockett nuclear devices given to him by the Boss as a decoy to cover their escape. One week later, Major Tom contacted a recovering Snake to inform him the Soviet Union was blaming the United States for the nuclear explosion, and the US government had to prove their innocence immediately or face a full-scale nuclear war. In response to this declaration, the 36th President Lyndon B. Johnson promised he would stop Volgin's regime, destroy the tank called Shagohod Volgin planned to use, and eliminate the Boss as a traitor. Given a second chance, Snake was ordered back to the jungles of Russia to complete Operation Snake Eater. The Fox unit reunited, this time manned by Major Zero, who swapped his codename after realizing Tom was not the name of the final tunnel used by Allied POWs in the movie The Great Escape, but rather one of the tunnels that collapsed. The Steve McQueen film was a reference to one of Kojima's earliest inspirations for the stealth action genre. Paramedic and the technology expert Sigint also signed up. Snake returned to the facility where he rescued Sokolov in order to meet with a double agent codenamed Adam, but instead was greeted by ex-NSA operative Eva. Their meeting was cut short by a young Revolver Ocelot. The brazen gunfighter and his elite unit proved no match for Snake as he cleared the targets and knocked Ocelot out cold. Sadistic players could murder the defenseless Ocelot, but it created a paradox and resulted in a game over. Typically, Metal Gear games took place in closed-off spaces within industrial complexes with narrow corridors and small enclosures. Snake Eater opted for a more natural setting, replacing pylons with climbable trees and metal hallways with steep canyons. Though the Sons of Liberty mechanics remained largely intact, the new environment forced players to change pace and consider more options before progressing forward. Kojima utilized a camouflage system in Snake Eater, giving players an initial wardrobe to select various outfits from. A meter in the corner of the screen displayed a percentage that measured Snake's camouflage level. The closer to 100%, the better Snake blended into the background. Instead of just keeping an eye on his life meter, Snake had to maintain stamina as well. When it depleted, his performance would drop. Players had to use the local wildlife such as alligators, rats, and even birds for nourishment. These items could be stored, though some would spoil if they sat in the inventory too long. Snake's supplies had to be traded for spaces in his backpack, with some contained in storage and others available for immediate use. Snake Eater also introduced the now famous CQC gameplay. Close quarters combat allowed players to lock up with enemies and perform various maneuvers, such as placing them into a chokehold, taking them down, or interrogating them at knife point. CQC could also be used to engage enemies offensively to disarm and defeat them. For the first time in the series, Snake sustained injuries to his body that would become worse over time if not properly treated. Using several medical tools, gamers could play doctor and treat Snake's ailments to prevent further damage. With the various members of Cobra all gunning to test their skills against the legendary Son of the Boss, further damage was inevitable. After a second shootout with Ocelot, Snake flung himself into a ravine. As he made his way through the watery caverns, he encountered Cobra's first stepping stone, the Pain. The Pain had the ability to control a swarm of hornets, forcing Snake to take cover underwater and surface at the opportune moment. In a small area enclosed by the jungle, Snake faced the Fear, a foe with an uncanny tongue and unnatural agility. The Fury, a cosmonaut pyromaniac outfitted with a spacesuit and jetpack, attempted to cremate Snake in a concrete shelter. Upon defeating each of these Cobra members, they would unexpectedly explode. Though most of these boss encounters were traditional in nature, two of them stood out as rather unique. Players had the option early on in Operation Snake Eater to assassinate the End, known as the father of sniping, from afar. However, if they allowed him to be wheeled away, he would later appear in an open environment for a sniper's duel. Winning the standoff meant enduring the real conditions that snipers face, unless you took advantage of Kojima's sense of humor. The End was extremely old, and if the player saved and waited a week, or sped up the internal clock of the PS2, they would resume the battle to find the End had died of old age. In the encounter with the Sorrow, the boss's old war buddy, players had to play defense like the fortune fight in Sons of Liberty. Snake traversed upstream while dodging the spirits of the enemies and bosses he had killed in the game so far, as well as attacks from the Sorrow himself. Upon reaching the end of the path, Snake apparently died and the game ended. Fortunately, if Snake ingested the revive pill, he awoke and resumed his mission. Eventually, Snake made it to Volgan's military fortress, Groznyjgrad, with the help of Eva. Snake attempted to infiltrate the fortress to rescue Sokolov and was forced to pass himself off as Major Ivan Rydenovich Rykov, who bore a striking resemblance to the MGS2 protagonist. Volgin interrupted Snake's rescue attempt and used a rather unorthodox means to discover Snake was an imposter. In the ensuing sequence, Sokolov was apparently killed and Snake was tortured, resulting in inevitable and irreversible damage to his right eye. Lucky players who saved in the jail cell following and later resumed from that point were treated to a very unusual Easter egg. After loading the file, instead of being Snake, you became a nameless character in the middle of a strange warehouse. A horde of zombie-like creatures attacked, and players could engage in combat resembling Devil May Cry. The impromptu hero could perform a wide variety of moves and enter an overdrive state, which gave the swordsman animalistic traits. Eventually, the sequence ended as Snake awoke, passing it off as a nightmare. With the help of Eva, Snake escaped and moved on to the facility where Shagohod was stored. Snake planted a series of explosives to destroy the Shagohod, but Volgin prevented his escape. The two slugged it out, with Snake emerging victorious. The facility erupted in a massive explosion as Eva and Snake rode off. Unfortunately, both the Shagohod and Volgin survived, and a lengthy chase sequence ensued. After speedily crossing over the runway and bridge, Snake and Eva finally destroyed the Shagohod, along with Volgin. The two made their way to a nearby lake where a WIG, or Wing-in-Ground aircraft, sat waiting for them. Eva prepped the plane while Snake confronted his mentor for one final battle. She told Snake if he wanted to complete the mission, her death had to come by his hands. Players had to actually press the trigger button to finish her, even though the sequence was presented as a cutscene. Eva and Snake prepared for takeoff, but Ocelot attempted a final time to stop Snake by shield jetting onto the plane. In a tense sequence, the two engaged in Ocelot's version of Russian roulette, though afterwards it was revealed both guns were full of blanks. Ocelot deboarded, and Snake and Eva made it to Alaska, where Snake finally received some well-deserved R&R and TNA. Snake awoke to find Eva gone, with only a taped message left behind. The recording told Snake Eva was actually working for the Chinese government, and Big Boss's death was an intentional play to appease the Russians and prevent a nuclear holocaust. In Washington, D.C., Snake received a commendation from the president himself, and the title of Big Boss. Snake, disgruntled at what had transpired, left the celebration abruptly to visit an unmarked grave. Snake placed the boss's gun and some flowers upon the tombstone, one of thousands lined in the rows. Just like before, an enhanced version of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater was released in the form of Subsistence. The PS2 exclusive launched on December 22, 2005 in Japan, with the release in North America the following March. Unlike Integral and Substance, Subsistence ditched the typical VR and side missions in favor of other bonuses. Players could now play the updated versions of the MSX Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, engage in the series' first online mode, and use a full 3D camera throughout the main campaign. The online multiplayer component, appropriately titled Metal Gear Online, featured 5 modes with up to 8 players going head-to-head in various deathmatch and capture-the-flag-style skirmishes. Players who obtained the highest score in a match when certain settings were in place took the role of a main character from the game, as well as a cameo by Riko Hinamoto from Rumble Roses. Konami's Metal Gear Online service for the PlayStation 2 closed in Japan on December 26, 2006. and in North America on April 2, 2007. Subsistence also included a unique minigame known as Snake vs. Monkey. Snake had to venture through various stages on a dangerous primate hunt based on Sony's Ape Escape series. The popular secret theater movies were also included, such as Metal Gear S, which provided an alternate take on Snake Eater with Sigint as the lead hero, and Metal Gear Raiden Snake Eraser, a Terminator Back to the Future spoof throwing Raiden into various comical situations in an attempt to claim the lead role in Metal Gear Solid 4. Other humorous scenarios included Snake being forced to shake the hand of the CIA director he neglected at the end of the game, and Sokolov and Snake taking a peek at dirty magazines. A limited edition version of Subsistence was also released with a feature known as Existence, a feature film containing all of the game's cutscenes as well as additional footage. Those who pre-ordered Subsistence in North America also received Metal Gear Saga Volume 1, a documentary and 5-part 30-minute featurette about the entire Metal Gear series, interspersed with an interview of Hideo Kojima, as well as trailers for various current Metal Gear games. Snake Eater has sold nearly 4 million copies worldwide to date, a decidedly low number for the franchise. By Metal Gear Solid 3, a lot of the series' conventions, like the fixed camera, had begun to show their age. The addition of the food and camo systems were met with mixed reaction, and CQC was eventually found to be a little too effective. Despite these issues, MGS3 still received accolades. The theme track won the Best Original Pop Vocal Song from the Game Audio Network Guild at the Game Developers Conference in August 2005. While the game itself won the award for Best PS2 Game at 2005's Game Convention in Germany. David Hayter, the voice of Snake, was nominated for the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Award for Outstanding Achievement in Character Performance. Kojima's decision to use Snake as the sole protagonist and curb the cinematic sequences went over well with fans. Metal Gear Solid 3 set forth the events that constructed Kojima's fantastical retelling of US military history. But the origin didn't end with Snake Eater. 2 years later, Kojima and Masahiro Yamamoto picked up the trail of Naked Snake 6 years after Vulcan's Uprising had been put down, in portable ops for the PSP. The new Big Boss retired from the Fox unit immediately following the operation that took his eye, and was soon captured by current Fox member Cunningham. Imprisoned somewhere on the San Hieronymo Peninsula in Colombia, Big Boss was quickly contacted by a nearby cellmate named Roy Campbell. Campbell was a part of a Green Beret unit sent in to stop the insurrection at the silo base there. The two broke out and began investigating. Big Boss first tried to make contact with Major Zero, but was received by Paramedic and Sigint. Apparently, the US government believed Major Zero and Big Boss were responsible for the Silo Revolt, and the only way to clear their names was to capture the rebellion's leader, Gene, and bring him back to the US. Gene possessed a voice that could control the minds of those around him. Campbell and Big Boss decided they needed more manpower and recruited disgruntled resistance members to their side. Enlisting new officers brought them in contact with a young girl named Elisa, a test subject named Null, who was dubbed the Perfect Soldier, Sokolov, who was assisting Gene under the pseudonym Ghost, and Fox unit member Python, who had a history with Big Boss. Python was previously in an accident that resulted in the gift of chilling powers, with the side effect being that he had to be kept in very cold temperatures. Big Boss learned Cunningham was working for the Pentagon and wanted Gene to launch a nuke at Russia to prolong the Cold War. Gene was actually aware of this plan thanks to information from Ocelot and wanted to attack America instead. Gene then used his voice to summon Ursula, Elisa's split personality. Ursula possessed incredible psychic powers and used them to power up Metal Gear Roxa. Big Boss then destroyed Metal Gear, apparently killing Elisa. Big Boss continued on, engaging both Null and Cunningham himself. Null was unmasked as a teenager named Frank Yeager, who was with Boss in Mozambique in 1966, 2 years after Snake Eater. Yeager would eventually become Gray Fox. In the final confrontation with Gene, he prepped a rocket to launch the real Metal Gear unit at the United States. Elisa heroically confronted him but lacked the strength to win the fight. With her dying breath, Elisa foretold just about every event that would transpire, and has, from Metal Gear on, although no specific content about MGS4 was divulged. Elisa died, Gene was beaten, and the boss and his comrades averted the deployment of Metal Gear. Big Boss returned to the US and formed Foxhound. As the first canon entry on a handheld platform, Portable Ops gave fans an unexpected insight into the all-encompassing conspiracy. Despite its importance to the overall picture, its sales were ultimately disappointing. Even so, it was an important entry into the series, as it brought the early chapters of Jack, aka Naked Snake, aka Big Boss, to a ceremonious close, and made the boss's reversal at the end of the MSX Metal Gear even more conflicting than it originally appeared. We cut the cord in the next installment of the Retrospective, as Snake hits the road with 3 handheld campaigns that brought tactical espionage to players on the go.